Those are the basic hand tools here.
You're all here today taking this course, how to be an auto mechanic, okay?
Ratchets here. You can do, you got 1/2 inch, 3/8, quarter, and then I really like these little tiny breaker bars. Speaking of breaker bars, if you're gonna do any of the, say you want to do wheel bearings or take your tires off and stuff, these are really handy. Or the alternative to that is get yourself some power tools. This isn't really the right application for taking tires off, but it is a power tool.
Hey, quit monkeying around, you guys.
Yep, that's what I used to take my tires off.
Yeah, this is all or nothing here.
Okay.
You can do pretty much everything you want to do with a socket set. Obviously, I don't have a super organized set. I really wish I did, but you just get a full set, try to keep it together. Say you don't know anything about automotive stuff and
Well, what came first, the TV set or the car?
or socket size or bolt sizes and stuff like that. You just kind of size them up visually. Oh, this looks like a 9/16 or
The more
a
you do
15
it, the more
millimeter.
it's like instinct to know what size it is.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you'll figure it out. I mean, it's not a super daunting task. You just kind of throw it together and, figure it out as you go. Everyone figures it out as they go, unless they spend $30,000 on a, actual course. But I guarantee you the tech there isn't going to be as to real life as it is.
It's not gonna be as rewarding either.
No,
Once
it's
you're finally like, hey, I figured it out.
You figured it out. But I mean, I don't do this for a living. This is just a hobby, something I really enjoy to do, is work on cars, go fast for cheap, that sort of thing. To complete a brake job, you're just gonna want your sockets for one. That's gonna be for the wheel, some of the mounting brackets for the caliper, stuff like that. From there, you're probably gonna want some wrenches just to get in there. Some of those are going to be inoperable for a socket, just because some of them are tight spaces, some of them are not. Depending on the region where the car was built, you're going to kind of need a couple specialty tools, which means this is what they call a hex drive. They make these in a bunch of different sets. This is a 6, which is in millimeters, 6 millimeter. This one's a 8. It says 8. So I mean, then you got your basic cutters. This is just a utility knife. I mean, doesn't take much. You can swap meet in a bunch of this stuff. You can get this stuff at the garage sale.
Honestly, you could probably get one of those from the dollar store.
This, yeah, you don't want to go the dollar store route. That's just.
I mean, it's
The
cheaply
millennial.
made, but if you're trying funds, you technically could.
We got enough comedians around here, all right?
You're really hard up. Either way, if you want to cut stuff, you can rip it apart with your pliers. I mean, you can figure it out. There's not a right or wrong. There is a wrong way to do stuff, but as long as the end product is acceptable, that's what really counts. I mean, you just use what you got type thing. And I mean,
I don't understand what's going on.
this is a 1/2 inch drive. You get it the bigger the end, the bigger the ratchet you need. No big deal there. And you got your specialties.
Ray's favorite tool.
I love this tool. You can, instead of a ratcheting end, you can do. I like to use this. They call it a speed wrench. This isn't really used by a lot. You see people working on their cars. This takes up a lot of space. This is basically like a built-in extension just to get something tight. You're not going to be able to put a bunch of force on this part to really ream down a socket.
It's just
a bolt.
Get a
This
bolt.
is just get it tight. Just get it snugged up so you can come in later, tighten it with this, or if you got a wrench, tighten with a wrench, or if you got a crescent wrench, tighten with a crescent wrench, whatever you got to do. Next up, we got for hose clamps. I really like these nut drivers. These really make it easy to tighten down hose clamps. I mean, you can use a flathead screwdriver. That's a pretty standard scenario, but you can either use a flathead screwdriver. There is a slot here, but you can see how much of a pain that is. you're tightening that down, it slips off. You're
All the
really
time.
trying to ream it down. You're cutting your fingers up and stuff like that. That's not what you want to do. You want to, this is what you want right here. The nut driver, come right in, boom, goes right over the top, tighten it right down. That's what we're talking about. Nut drivers are way better. But, in my scenario, like, screwdrivers don't usually get used as their original purpose. I end up being pry bars because I don't actually own designated pry bars. Why would you buy a pry bar that's will only do one job when you can buy a screwdriver and it'll do two, everything. You know what I mean? It's like, pry bars are handy, but screwdrivers are just as good. And if you buy the cheap ones, you don't go out to your Snap-on dealer, buy a $70 screwdriver. You can just, this is a Craftsman, this is probably close to 20, 30 years old. So this,
Built to last.
I kind of take care of this one a little bit more, but yeah, built to last, exactly right. It's not really scarred up, like you can tell this is like the last resort screwdriver. This doesn't get used a lot, but
That's a good one though.
the end is nice and sharp, it's not bent or anything in any fashion. But this is like your standard cruising model. This is probably a little bit long. Something you're probably more used to is like roughly this size. This is probably what you're going to see more. Like I say, I have no brand loyalty. I just get what's available, or I get free stuff. I don't care about brands. Brands are not a big deal to me. Same thing with zip ties. The only rule I have for zip ties is
Don't play these ones.
no, yeah, these ones aren't the best. They're I think what they call a low profile. They're they attach on the same plane as the zip tie itself. Typically, you'll have one that goes that'll come through like this. This one comes through like this, and it is the worst. You can't get them tight. They don't really look very cool, This makes me look like I actually care about the zip tie job I did, which usually I do, but so when you pop the hood on somebody's car and you see these zip ties, that's instant disrespect right there.
Are these more expensive than normal ones? That's true.
No idea. I bought these so long ago, and there's so many of them because I don't like to use them. But moral of the story is, zip ties, you're going to need some of those, whether that be temporary use, tying junk out of the way as you're working on other junk, or wire retention. Say you got a wire going by an exhaust manifold, or any part of hot engine parts that you don't want your wires to get burned up. Use these. Those are, and the other rule I have that I was trying to get to before is they make these in a variety of colors: white, colored, and then they have black.
Red.
The black is their only good one. I don't know what's wrong with the white ones or the colored ones, but they just fall apart and get cracked and brittle way faster than these black ones do. Those are the best ones.
See it. And that has been
Raiders
your
Garage.
zip tie moment.
Next, you got your chemicals. This is just a penetrating lube, where I use a lot of WD-40. I got this one for Christmas, so it's not really used at all yet, and it's a really small one. So I thought this was presentable. It's because it's not all filthy, but that's just penetrating lube. You use this on bolts. People spray these on bolt heads or like threads trying to get out stuck bolts. In my experience, that doesn't really work. It doesn't really get in behind the nut very well unless you got it like super hot or something. I usually do this, give them a quick squirt before I put a bolt in. But a lot of scenarios you don't want a bunch of lube on bolts, so this is just when you come across it, you'll know where you need it. Like this, you're tightening this up, or you're taking off an old one. Just give it a quick squirt to come off easier, or tighten it. Be able to get it tighter with a little bit of lube on there. That's way better than if you just ram it on dry, or you could break. Like this one's old. I just keep a bunch of these around just because I lose them all the time. I do a project where I need more of them, so I just keep these kinds of things around. This is a consumable part that I'll always keep around. Same with bolts and washers and stuff like that. You never know when you're going to need that junk. Then obviously your power tools. This is just your cruising model little tiny impact. I think this is quarter-inch impact driver. I wouldn't recommend using this on a lot of, like, I don't want to say brittle parts, but like your rusty areas to get the bolts off. That's one thing, but this applies like a lot of force. Like, I mean, it's a lot of force, but the impact is vibrating a lot of the stuff. It's like you're not going to use this to ramrod your head bolts down or anything really engine internal. That's something that you can do if you really know what you're doing, but I just don't do that because there's such a large margin for error, so that's something I try to stay away from. But I just have these all different sizes. So you've got just like the ratchets over here. We got quarter, 3/8, half-inch. That'll fit all your sockets you'll ever have. I have them all on here just because, I mean, if you got the right size socket but it's the wrong hex, you got them all right here. You can do whatever you need to do. And then this has got a swivel, and this is what they call a U-joint or whatever you call it. It helps you get around corners to attach fasteners, tighten down fasteners. This also has an adapter. This is the 1/4-inch drive adapter here, and then you can adapt all kinds of sockets together with this. Like, this will take a 3/8 drive ratchet to a 1/4-inch drive socket. Obviously, this piece isn't as strong as just a 3/8 to a 3/8 socket, but you could do that, instead of having this. Oh, I got this handy. Or in a lot of cases, the 1/4-inch drive sockets are skinnier, thinner, smaller. And if you got to get into somewhere small, you can use the adapters for that kind of stuff. They're just handy to have around. You don't really know why you have them, but when you need them, you have them, and they're just useful for stuff like that. All sorts of adapters like that. You can get them at Harbor Freight, stuff like that. That's where I would go. I wouldn't invest a bunch of money, especially if you're not going to do this stuff very much. Just get the stuff you really need. Don't splurge on junk that you're never going to use and it's just about bragging to your buddies, because they're not going to care about your Harbor Freight garbage. But then you got this bunch of funnels for fluids. This is a tiny little funnel. This would be, say you need to add fluid to your automatic transmission. Those don't have a port on the transmission usually. You gotta spill them through the dipstick tube, and those holes are really small, so this is something for that. I don't have a lot of other funnels because I lose them all the time. This one just happened to be on the table at the time of making this, so that ended up working good. And then obviously some rags. You're gonna want to keep your areas clean, and then your brake clean goes along with the cleaning. Rags and brake clean, those are going to be really good tools for you when you're trying to clean up parts instead of soap and water. Pressure washing is a good way to go, but if you're doing some sort of engine part, like if you're taking your oil filter off and you don't want to just splooge on your new oil filter onto your gross, disgusting oil filter adapter, just spray this on a rag. Use your rag, wipe off all that old oil, make sure that's all nice and clean, and then spin your filter on type thing. And this is kind of more the specialty side of things. I do a lot of engine work, so I'm always draining coolant out from my engines or doing something like that, or a new radiator or whatever. And I don't usually go to the level of using a funnel to fill my radiators. I usually just dump it in out of the gallons, but this just makes it a little cleaner job. This will just go into either your radiator, over the top of your radiator, or into your overflow tank, and It's got all sorts of adapters and stuff you can use for that. You can either, make it go around corners, take it back down. These adapters here will screw into, or just kind of push into there. And then this has got an O-ring in it. You'll actually be able to make a watertight seal between the coolant flowing in to the overflow or radiator. You got some radiator adapters here. Those are cool, but they look really cheap and chintzy. And I actually overpaid for this. I found this cheaper later on, a few days later, so not feeling good about that purchase, but this is worthwhile if you don't want to spray coolant all over your engine or radiator. It also makes it simple, like say you're filling up your radiator and there's coolant dripping on the ground. You think you got a coolant leak, but it could just be spilling coolant all over everywhere. So that's kind of a cool deal there. You can splurge for this stuff, but it's not really required. Like, you can build a funnel out of anything. You can build a funnel out of, perfect example right here. You can just say this is the correct size for your fill, something like that. The coolant overflow, you would just cut this. Use your knife that we talked about before. Cut this here. Boom. There you got your funnel right there. Like I'm saying, is the tools, yeah, you need some basic hand tools like this and stuff like this, but you don't need 50,000 different funnels. Make your own funnels. Make it work for you. It doesn't have to be expensive to work on your car. It's all about just, do you have the imagination to make the repair? You know what I mean? You got the tools, but you might not have some of these specialty tools. You might be able to hack and cut apart a wrench or a socket or any one of these things to finish a job. That's where it comes back to the cheapness of the tools. Use your cheap tools, tear those up, cut them up, whatever you need to do with them, and you don't care if you destroy a $2 screwdriver, you know what I mean? Type thing. So these extensions, these just go on these 1/2, 3/8, 1/4 inch drive. Use these to get around. Man, I have all sorts of extensions for these. Extensions are never unused thing. You're always going to use extensions, and if you don't have extensions, you're going to rely on your wrenches a lot more, which could speed up or could slow down the progress on your project, because once again, sockets makes things faster. You're turning this a lot faster. These go a lot faster than going like this with your open-end wrench or closed-end wrench. Takes up a bunch of time that you might not want to spend.
Or you don't have.
or you don't have. Speed it up, Make it work for you, like I was saying before.
For Christmas and your car breaks down on the side of the road.
That might be a plus. Say you do have an owner's manual for your whatever vehicle. This happens to be for my 80 Rabbit. You go through here, you get to an end of a job, and some of these parts you don't want to come apart, or you're not exactly sure on something. These have torque specs for the bolts. It's you're putting the suspension back together. That's a good analogy right there, because a lot of times you're just tightening down the bolt. You're going along, you think it's good and tight, or maybe it's really tight with this, but it's not super tight with this because of leverage. Look how much shorter that is. You may think it's tight with this, but in reality, it's not down to the torque specification that it's supposed to be. This is where this comes in. This is called a torque wrench. This is used to tighten bolts to specific torque ratings. So this says mount being adjusted. Loosen pivot bolt and nut, align mounting surface with imaginary line, then torque nut of pivot bolt to 44 foot-pounds. So you would just go into here, and these are really easy to use. You tighten this bottom sleeve, and what that's doing is some magic in here. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I mean, I'll probably break one of these one day, and I'll be able to take it apart, see what's going on. But
They're pretty pricey, so you don't want to break one or anything.
you can get them cheap.
And
You can go to Harbor Freight on their tool sale, or just an average day. I mean, I think you can get a torque wrench like this for maybe 30, 40 bucks, which seems like a lot, but when you go into, like I was talking before, you're talking Snap-on, Matco,
Oh, yeah.
all those, you're a 3/8 torque wrench could be well over $100, you know, type thing. This is just cheaper. You're not doing this for a living. You're not, you know, torquing out 1,000 bolts a month or something like that. You're just doing this stuff in your backyard, in your driveway, in your garage, for yourself, you know. So you would just spin this up to the correct torque reading. This goes in multiples of 5. So if you want 15 foot-pounds, you'll just spin this up, and you'll figure it out. I'm not gonna go through that because I'm just gonna make it more confusing for everybody. But yeah, there's kind of your basic knowledge on torque wrenches. Super easy to use. And then a rule of thumb is when you're completed the job with the torque wrench and you're done with your torque wrench, you want to put it away. You always want to zero it back out, which means spin it all the way back down. Make sure it's there's no load on the torque wrench itself with this sleeve. Just pull the sleeve all the way down and put it away. That's just something I've heard from a bunch of different people. I don't know exactly what it does, but now that I think about it, that could be bogus too, who knows. But that's just something I always do because I don't want to buy a new torque wrench because I left it loaded up, left it at a torque measurement. So, flashlights, that's another good one. You just have a couple flashlights. I'm using flashlights all over in here because my garage is dark, but the flashlights is always good for scenarios like this. It's kind of dark in here. You want to light up an area of your car, just go ahead and pull out your handy dandy flashlight. Magnetic is best, so you can stick it to parts of the car that you're working on. That's another tool I didn't go over on here is having a telescoping magnet just with a handle on it. It's just you drop a bolt or a nut or yes, a washer, it could be a socket. You can't get to it with your hands. This is just going to be handy to be able to stick it in. They also have bendable ones of these. They're not solid steel. They have like a bending movement. They bend. That's all I know. You know, that's your basic hand tools. I mean, there's some good knowledge here, but once you start wrenching, you're just going to realize that what you need, what you don't need. You just got to get out there, start doing your thing. Basic tools for your garage. Ah!